Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm now going to call this meeting to order as we have a quorum. Um, First of all, I'd like everyone to know that we have translation available in Spanish, and today Magali will be here helping us with translation. I'd just like to remind you to, if you would like translation in Spanish or English, to click the little world globe icon on the right of your screen and choose the language you would like for translation in. And Magali, if you could give this announcement in Spanish, I would really appreciate it. So we, the Reimagining Public Community Advisory Committee, are here to engage in a community-led process that we believe can lead to meaningful recommendations for reform and alternatives to policing in our community. Before we begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we host this meeting on the lands of the Muwekma Ohlone people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We commit ourselves to partner with our Indigenous sisters and brothers to celebrate and honor their legacy in our collective work for justice and in our care for these lands we benefit from today. First, we're going to hear a testimony from Karina Griswold. Karina, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself, please. The floor is yours.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Karina, and I am here to speak today regarding my father, Rudy Cardenas, who was killed in San Jose in 2004. There's, I guess, different, I don't know. There's so much to it, from then till present. My father was pretty much in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was shot in the back by a state agent. The case did go to the grand jury. The grand jury indicted the officer of manslaughter, but in the actual trial, he was let go. I think it was the first and last open grand jury ever in Santa Clara County, where the public and the media was able to sit in and view everything. I think it was very important because I felt that everybody got to hear everything for what it was, and everybody got to, come to their own conclusion, if you will, of what they felt. It wasn't just edited from the media or, I think that this is something that needs to be brought back. I think grand juries need to be brought back, and I think that they need to be open to the public. I definitely have a lot of trauma from that. I think it's very traumatic, losing a loved one, but I think it's very traumatic when, in my father's case, we did not know how or, if he died. And in those 24 hours we had went to, I never was taught that law enforcement was bad, or I never had any bad experiences. So we had went to law enforcement within the first 24 hours to try to find out what happened to my dad and get answers. And, you want to know, one, we wanted to know if he died, if it was true, and two, we wanted to know why or how. And in that process, I would say that's where a lot of the trauma came from, was because we were interrogated. Me and my sister were separated. We were thrown in rooms, and we were questioned over and over again about if my dad was depressed and suicidal, like his mental health. It seemed to be the main focus of their questioning. I don't think at the time I really knew what they were doing. But now that I'm older and I look back, because I was 19, you know, I see what they were trying to do. I mean, I saw it in the grand jury and trial. It was really, it was really, how do I say it, really disappointing to see, to experience. I think it took a lot of, you know, innocence from me. I thought the world was like this, you know, like teenager, this great place. And I didn't realize that these people that I was taught to trust and, you know, to protect, and you call them for help, you know, would be that way towards me. I mean, I had done nothing wrong. I just wanted to know if my dad died. Yeah, I mean, after he had died, we had done protesting, and, you know, we had other events to kind of, you know, get the support of the community. And this is when we're trying to get the grand jury open. And at a lot of those situations, I had cops come up to me, yell at me, curse at me, tell me that they were glad my dad died and he deserved to die. So till this day, I still struggle with law enforcement. I get a lot of anxiety, you know. It's really unfortunate because it's like, you know, my daughters are in school and other parents are, you know, law enforcement. You're just like at a parent teacher conference, and then it's like I have anxiety and it's like embarrassing, and, you know, it's just something I struggle with. And I think too, yeah, so that was kind of my experience. I think too, it's really hard because, you know, a lot of times, a lot of things are, I guess the press and the police put a lot of negative things out about our loved ones. And I know people, you know, in my situation, the police didn't even know who my dad was, but, you know, within 24 hours, they had like every single bad thing he's ever done in his life plastered across, you know, every news outlet in the Bay Area. So, you know, as a teenager, that's really, you know, it's really hard because it's not something that I necessarily knew about my father. It wasn't something like, you know, your parents don't really want you to know, you know, bad stuff that happens in their lives. And then you hear things all over the media, and that has really negative implications on children and just like, you know, your work, like your coworkers, like, you know, just everything. So it was just a really hard time. And I think, yeah, there's so many aspects to an officer involved shootings that people don't realize, like how the families are affected. I think a lot of times the families are kind of forgotten about, and there's a lot, you know, we're kind of like innocent bystanders, right? Like we've done nothing wrong yet. We're like kind of just put through so much trauma from it. And the way I describe it is, I did nothing wrong. I went to the police for help, and it was like this like line was drawn in the sand of like them versus us, and I didn't know what I did wrong, or like, you know, why I was treated like a suspect. You're not treated like any other homicide. You know, if anyone's killed in a homicide, the families are treated 100% different. They're getting services, they're getting therapy, they're getting like funeral compensation. Like, it's just so different. I mean, just from the way like the DAs talk to you or the police talk to you, there's no compassion. It's almost like they're irritated that you call and ask questions. They're mad. They're, you know, why are you bothering us? It's just a really horrible experience. And I feel like it's something I never thought I would go through. I never thought I would experience. It's something that's not only it affects me, but it affects my children. You know, I just got diagnosed with PTSD. I thought, you know, the past years I just had anxiety, and they said, no, it's not anxiety. It's from what happened. I think a lot of it was subdued because, you know, you didn't really hear about officer involved shootings. And then now with like George Floyd and like everything going on, it's like everywhere. So I think a lot of families are having a lot of, you know, a lot of triggers. But I do think, yeah, I think that there's really a long-term, I think families really need long-term treatment, if not, you know, initially, especially for children. I think it's really important that they're receiving care and assistance, and there's some sort of like support for the families, you know, if families could just have what the regular homicide victims have or anything. But yeah, that's kind of my story.
Thank you, Karina. Can imagine how difficult that must have been, but I think it's a powerful reminder for all of us about the work that we must do in regards to police accountability and transparency. So moving forward, we're now going to receive a report from Sandra Asher from Parents Helping Parents regarding the disabled community and public safety and what they've heard from the community during their listening session. Sandra, so I invite you to unmute your mic. The table is yours.
Great, thanks, Trob. As Trob mentioned, I'm Sandra Asher. I'm a disabled person and mother of a teenager with autism and significant mental health challenges. I was nominated to the Reimagining Committee by Parents Helping Parents, where I sit on the board of directors. PHP is our local family engagement and resource center in Santa Clara County for parents of all ages with children with disabilities. Next slide, please. Oh.
Rob, if you want to, I have her slide deck handy. If you want to bring your screen down, I can share mine. Okay. Okay. And there we go. Okay.
Awesome, thanks. So at the beginning of October, Parents Helping Parents, in collaboration with our partners at Hope Services, Sacred Heart Community Service, San Andreas Regional Center, and the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, held a listening session to get the input from our local disability community called Safety for All, Conversations on Law Enforcement from the Perspectives of People with Disabilities. And this session invited participants to share their experiences with and perspectives on policing and what law enforcement needs to better understand about the disability community and what they would like to see changed. Next slide, please. We had approximately 90 attendees and hosted 11 small facilitated breakout group discussions. Because we know these conversations are often bringing up past trauma and can be very triggering, we also had 2 breakout rooms with trauma therapists available to support our participants. You can see the breakout of the attendees. We did have people with disabilities, as well as parents, allies, and professionals in support of the disability community attend. And it's important to note that attendees checked multiple categories. So this isn't just each individual response. In order to have an accessible and inclusive session, we have had ASL, Spanish, and Vietnamese interpretation, as well as program materials in Spanish and Vietnamese. Next slide, please. We asked our community 4 specific questions. First, we asked what they would like city and county leaders to know about their or their loved ones' experiences in regards to law enforcement. We also wanted to know what they thought police didn't understand about their disability. Following that, we asked what makes them feel safe or unsafe in their community, and then got their perspective on what they wanted to see change and how the police interact and protect people with disabilities. Next slide. Obviously, we heard a lot of information and more than I can just share in our brief time together this evening. But from the feedback, 3 main concerns have risen to the surface. The first, there's a significant fear in the community that law enforcement could exacerbate a situation or pose a danger to people with disabilities during a crisis. The reason people call the police is because they don't know what else to do. They need a situation de-escalated that's not necessarily a criminal situation requiring use of force. The second theme is a need for better law enforcement and all first responders training to identify, assess, and understand how to work with people with disabilities. There's a big need for them to understand how to identify behavior that's maladaptive versus criminal. Parents were worried that the police would be called by their neighbors or others if they're out in the community while trying to de-escalate their child, because those interactions can often look very scary and out of control to those who don't understand what's happening. It was interesting that this call for better understanding and training rose to the surface, because we know that our police department during their CIT training gets 1 hour worth of training on developmental disabilities from the San Andreas Regional Center, an hour specifically on autism from the Morgan Autism Center, and time with NAMI to talk about mental health. However, for San Jose PD, the participants are usually new recruits at the beginning of their career, and the conversation is theoretical. They don't actually meet anyone with disabilities or talk to any impacted individuals, and there's no role play. And this is not necessarily the same for other local law enforcement agencies. In fact, this concern is so heightened by our population that one of our attendees recently penned an op-ed for the San Jose Spotlight. And the final concern was a need for consultation, coordination, or alternative systems to engage service providers in emergency response. There's a wide range of disabilities, and not everyone has the same needs or presents the same in a crisis. As the saying goes, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Similarly, for the hearing impaired, not everyone who's hearing impaired or deaf understands written English or converses in ASL. So each individual's response in a crisis can be unique. We discussed being able to connect law enforcement with those agencies that better understand each individual's needs, such as having a flag in dispatch that a person is a regional center client and being able to contact a caseworker at the regional center. I'll provide the committee a more complete summary of our feedback, as well as my conversations with our training providers following this meeting. Next slide. Now I'd like to introduce you to Leanne Davis, who leads the ARC's National Center for Criminal Justice and Disability. Leanne has 25 years of experience of criminal justice advocacy and community organizing. For the past 8 years, she's been working with the ARC's National Center for Criminal Justice. The ARC is a nonprofit organization which promotes and protects the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Their National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability serves as a bridge between the criminal justice and disability communities. Following Leanne's presentation, we'll discuss your recommendations on what reforms or actions you think would meaningfully help our disability community through our work here on RIPS. Leanne?
Thank you, Sandra. And I'm so excited to be here with you this evening to talk about the importance of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and law enforcement and others in our criminal justice system really having a better understanding of this population and why that's so important. And I'm not sure if are you all going to forward slides, or do I need to share my screen?
I believe your slides were part of this deck I gave to Chris.
Okay,
Okay.
I just want to make sure I wasn't absolutely sure on that.
Yeah. All right, we'll get that all set. Sorry.
Sorry, Chris, if I got you off there. I messed you up at all.
Can you all see the slide deck? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you can scroll down to, I think it's like slide 7.
There we go.
There you go. And select slideshow. Awesome.
Thank you so much. And Sandra already did a good job introducing the ARC. I think most of you are probably familiar with the ARC of the United States. We have over 600 chapters nationwide, and our mission is really to promote and protect the rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we work at the policy, program, and legal advocacy level. Next slide. So it was about 8 years ago now that we received funding through the Department of Justice to create a National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability. And I've been working at the ARC, really focused on this issue of the intersection of people with IDD and the criminal justice system for 25 years. And it has been a very long road to try to get enough funding to even get to the level where you can have a center or a project that can last this long focused on this topic. So it's really been quite an amazing experience to get this opportunity. And what we've been doing with that is to create training materials. We do a broad array of projects ranging from supporting crime victims with disabilities to offender defendant issues as well. And what we're doing is advocating, again, at that intersection of criminal justice reform, while at the same time advancing disability rights. And we're supporting people with IDD in our chapter network as well to lead this work. Next slide. This is just a little bit of what we do. As I said, training and technical assistance. We've created what's called Pathways to Justice, which is a one-day training that focuses on training law enforcement, victim service providers, and attorneys. And we create what's called the Disability Response Team ahead of that training, who actually co-trains with us when we come into communities to talk about the issues specifically on intellectual developmental disabilities. We know that there is CIT training available, but that doesn't go more in depth into IDD, and that's what this training hopes to do. We also provide nationwide information referral, so we get calls from attorneys, family members, people with disabilities, all on different topics related to intersection with the criminal justice system. We provide resources, and we attend many different conferences and webinars related to these issues and host them as well. Next slide. So I just wanted to give you some of the national statistics on this topic. We know that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as disabilities in general, are overrepresented in our criminal justice system as both victims and suspects or defendants. And this picture here shows just how high the rate of victimization is. So to the right, you'll see that individuals with cognitive disabilities face the highest rates of violent victimization. So the Bureau of Justice Statistics, when they asked a question on the National Crime Victim Survey about this topic, and they looked at different types of disabilities and who's most likely to be victimized, they found that it was people with cognitive disabilities that faced the highest risk. On the left side of that graphic, you'll see people with intellectual disability are 7 times more likely to experience sexual assault compared to those without disabilities. So we're talking about a significant high number of trauma going on in the lives of people with intellectual disability, and thinking about how that impacts their ability to get supports and services as well. Down below, if you look at barriers to justice, we know that the reports of victimization are often not believed, so there's credibility issues involved because of disability. Cases may go unprosecuted, especially if there's any type of communication differences or challenges. And then even when services are there, they might be inaccessible. So looking at ADA accommodations around that. Next slide. And on the other hand, if we're looking at suspect defendant issues, again from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and this is from a prison and jail survey, 2 in 10 2 in 10 prisoners and 3 in 10 jail inmates reported having a cognitive disability. Again, the most commonly reported type of disability. So we see this again, whether victims or suspects, that people with these types of disabilities are overrepresented in the system. And when we look at barriers to justice for this population, we know that disability often goes unrecognized or is dismissed as irrelevant. They face higher rates of arrest, conviction, and longer sentences, and inaccessible diversion and rehabilitation programs. So accessibility is still a key here, being able to recognize if someone may have the disability. And these are the kinds of things that we try to address in the trainings that we provide. Next slide. Now, we can't talk about this issue without looking at this from different marginalized populations as well. Back before the George Floyd case happened, our National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability was already looking very closely at the intersectionality of people with disabilities who were also people of color or from other marginalized groups. And I wanted to share this data because it is so important to look at why we've got to be looking at these intersections. So between 1/3 and 1/2 of people shot and killed by police in the US have a disability. And this comes from a white paper that was created looking at different media accounts, because we don't have the hard data collected in our country, but pulled from different media accounts showing just how often people with disabilities are being shot in our country. Another study from 2017 from the American Journal of Public Health found that young people with disabilities were 13% more likely to be arrested than their peers without disability. But when you look at Black youth with disability, that figure actually jumped to 17%. And then people with disabilities have an overall 43% chance of arrest, with a disproportionate amount falling on young Black men. And one project that we worked on through Vera Institute of Justice found that in their literature review of looking at the population of people with intellectual disability, there is a huge lack of data around this issue. So if you're thinking about how to address it in your local community, looking at, do we know how often, police are encountering people with intellectual disability? Are we looking at also other areas like race, ethnicity? Are we looking at LGBTQ in all of these intersections? And how is that impacting how people are receiving services and how they're experiencing the criminal justice system? So this data is really important to help us uncover a lot of those questions. Next slide. So a key question that we also need to be asking is, what is our focus? Is it crisis prevention or is it crisis intervention? And as Sandra mentioned, what most of law enforcement receive when it comes to training is crisis intervention training, or CIT. One of the things that we've been trying to kind of challenge that notion a little is saying, maybe we should think about this as crisis prevention training, and think about maybe even retitling this so that we can really focus on the prevention piece of this. And it's almost kind of like thinking of doing a paradigm shift, so that we're really putting more of our energy, time, resources into that front end before police even need to be involved. So one of the things that we're concerned about with the current CIT training is that there is more of a focus on mental health, which of course mental health needs to be there, but there also needs to be focus on IDD as well. And that's why we created the Pathways to Justice training. We also need to make sure that we not just have like a side issue of other identities as well, but have that throughout any kind of training that we're providing. I always kind of have a question around what we mean by crisis. When we talk about crisis within these circles, we need to ask, is it a crisis for the officer? Is it a crisis for the person with a disability? And how we might call that different things. Because what might look like a crisis to an officer may just be someone stimming who has autism. And that can make people feel uncomfortable if they don't understand what's going on. So really having a clear definition of what that means. We don't want to create further false assumptions and stereotypes of people with disabilities. We want to focus on building relationships first, and then thinking about what the crisis response would be. And again, this will help us proactively create a safeguard against potential crisis. Next slide. And I just wanted to share a story of a family that out of a publication that I co-edited with the University of Minnesota, because I think it just shows so specifically what so many families are facing in our country. And this is from Shaletta Brundage, and she has 2 children actually with autism, and one of his name is Daniel. And she says here that Daniel wanders, he runs, and if you call his name, he doesn't respond. And you know, that's cute when he's 2, but what happens when he's 12 and he runs in someone's house and they see this little black boy running in their house and he's waving his hands in the air and squealing? He's going to get shot. So like I said, that's the kind of stuff that keeps us up at night. That's what we really worry about. So thinking about this from the perspective of Black families, and then adding autism or adding a disability onto that, and the fear that that really creates, and ensuring that we're bringing that understanding to the table when we're talking about training, when we're thinking about policies, anything that's done, how incredibly important it is to have that lens in all of these conversations. Next slide. And you can go ahead and bring the next 3 up because, yeah, thank you. So this is our Pathways to Justice training that I mentioned earlier. And as I said, the first step in our training is to create a disability response team. You have to have on that team a law enforcement officer, a victim service provider, a person with a disability, attorney, and a disability provider as well. And with that team, we work with them to come in and provide a 1-day training, which is that step 2 for not only police, but also attorneys and victim advocates, because we strongly believe it takes a community and that everyone equally needs to be educated on these issues. And then lastly, we provide ongoing technical assistance after an action plan is created to help that community more specifically deal with issues that they are facing when it comes to serving this population. Next slide. And this is, again, who is in the disability response team. So on the left there, you'll see criminal justice professionals, which include those 3 key buckets of individuals. And then on the right side, the disability community, which includes people with disabilities. And we believe it's very important to involve and provide leadership opportunities for people with disabilities to be involved in training efforts. And so, for example, when we go to provide a training, in every disability response team, we have people with disabilities who are speaking into all of these issues, who are part of the action plan, who provide training, and together we all work on this issue equally so that the power is balanced. And I think that's really important to think about when we consider providing training to law enforcement or others, is to ensure that it's not all coming from one side of the equation, but that we're really having a balanced conversation about these issues. Next slide. And just quickly wanted to show, this is our Pathways to Justice model. I don't know how many of you might be familiar with this sequential intercept map or the SIM map, but that is what's often used for CIT training when it comes to mental health issues. And so we took that and are using this model to say, let's look at the same kind of questions as we go through the criminal justice system, but look at what happens if someone has an intellectual disability. So that's what this map does for communities. And we use this in our training sessions to help explain what are the different accommodations people need, how does communication need to be changed so that people can understand each other, and then what supports are available in the community so that we can keep people from cycling in and out of the criminal justice system. Next slide. We also are doing some international work on this issue too, and we're looking at how do we build solidarity, not only within our country, but in other countries that are facing these issues. Is there a way that we can create a shared vision around this? It's important that we do have common language because, like I said, people might define crisis different, depending on who's looking at a certain situation. How do we provide prevention-centered solutions that are not retributive? And then local, state, national, and international solidarity is so important too. And I'm telling you, I don't think I've had as much fun as being involved in this international hub, because we're learning that in other countries, they're facing many similar situations. And it's interesting to hear what's going on, say, for example, in the UK versus Israel, and Korea and China, and all of these different areas that are also trying to train their law enforcement about people with disabilities. And so as part of this group, we're working to reimagine community safety and policing. We've submitted comments to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. And so this is just an example of how at every level we can be working to change things, to reimagine, not only at the local level, the state level, at every level, that there is a way to provide input and to center any input we provide on people with disabilities first and foremost. Next slide. And these are some of the recommendations, and I'll just end with this slide, that we provided to the United Nations, that people of color and persons with disabilities share many common historical experiences, of course, of police violence, stigmatization, and discrimination, that our disability community adds strength to the fight to reform police. And so we need to look at how we are doing that. And often we do work in silos, and how can we break out of those so that we are working together in harmony around these issues and reallocating resources to community-based supports. Also be careful of replacing one system, such as policing, with another, such as medical, if neither is centering the community first. So one system might look like it's the answer, but if we're not, again, centering the community and people with disabilities first, then we are missing the mark. And then people with disabilities who are also people of color must be recognized as the critical voice in the call for design for change in the design of police reform. So I think, next slide, I think that was it for me. So there's my contact information. Again, I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to speak to you today, and happy to take any questions whenever that time, if that's now, now is good. Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks so much, Leanne. Appreciate you coming and speaking to us tonight. Tarab, I'm not sure if you wanted me to open the discussion, or if you wanted to go ahead and do that.
Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, I think we have 5 minutes for discussion on the agenda for this now, so that you can get some feedback from us on what we would like to do based on this information. So I think you had a question on your slide, I believe.
Yeah, the question was really just that. What recommendations does the committee have based on the information they've seen tonight in our work as a RIPS community? What policies or approaches might you guys recommend?
Thank you. And so for comments from committee members, I will ask you to please use the raise hand function. The raise hand function that is, my apologies, I'm not able to go backwards on this. Yes. Please use the raise hand function on the bottom of your screen to comment. The floor is now open for comments. Nobody would like to go. Actually, I have something to say. Oh, and actually we do. Adrian, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Adrian speaking. I'm Associate Pastor for Cham Deliverance Ministry. It used to be Community Homeless Alliance Ministry on 5th Street in San Jose. And I'm also a commissioner for the Housing Authority. And I'm working with Parents Helping Parents lately, and we just had a meeting that very closely with and Sandra wasn't there because she was preparing for this, but it closely mirrors what's going on. Everybody's got the same concern, is that we need to feel safe, and I'd say and the police need to feel safe, and there are police that just don't care and they need to be gone. That's a whole different situation. But one of the things that I thought of was engaging with the chief of police, getting permission to speak perhaps with the police psychologist to say, what do you think would be the things that would help us to help them to help us? You know what I mean? Because they're the ones that counsel them all the time. They know what the fears are. They know what the ego issues are. And I think that we should engage somebody that's aware of that. The other thing is thinking about protecting ourselves and our own families. Is I had the idea of getting one of those buttons that you place around the neck, like I've fallen and I can't get up. But an agency that's a third party that immediately engages with the police department when you've been stopped. You push that button, they say, can I help you? And it takes that onus off of the person that they're now looking at. How that would be paid for, I don't know yet, but I know that there are insurances now that are picking up that exact device because I'm going to get it this next year. So I know that insurance companies are looking towards that function of covering devices like that. So that's just a couple of things I want to put out there.
Thank you for sharing, Adrian. And next we have Molly. You may please unmute yourself.
Good evening, I'm Molly Macleod. I'm a person with a disability. My son had non-apparent disabilities as Black, and as I've shared with this task force before, has been beaten by San Jose police and cited and arrested for walking while Black, a number of different things. And so I brought my lived experience in the conversations with Beverly Wong and Sandra Asher, and then in participating in the group for this first convening on October 7th. And there was so much learning along the way, and I'm really appreciative of all the folks that were involved in this initial effort. And that's the thing. It really is just a beginning. I would ask that the resources that I put in the chat be included on the topic of disability, because it has national information, but also on practices. Among the various perspectives and recommendations, this is very well grounded in people working within the systems of oppression that result in disproportionately people being locked up who are disabled, Black and brown and indigenous. And so I would like that to be considered too, because the source is T.L. Lewis, a Black person, attorney, who works with deaf people who are incarcerated. And I appreciate the last report that was just given with Leanne Davis. And as I was looking at the ARC, that is an organization that I'm not as familiar with, one of the things that I really appreciated is that they do connect with that global effort. The United Nations does have the commitments about the people with disabilities, and San Jose could join the global effort in Cities for All, which focuses on accessibility, and that would include being able to move around the city. So I'm going to put in a link with that as well, and thank you for your consideration.
And thank you, Molly, for sharing those resources with us. Are there any other comments from the committee or the public? We have Lori Valdez and then Jim Carter. Lori, you may unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a question. So in the the data for the ARC and stuff like that, they're talking about, but how about, like, I didn't hear anything about families with disabilities, learning, cognitive, whatever disabilities, who are also immigrant families who are, you know, afraid of the police because they're afraid they're going to get deported, right? So how are we including that population? Because, you know, in San Jose, we have a lot of Spanish speaking families, Mexican families, a lot of families who, you know, don't have, you know, immigration status here and are threatened every day by, if they go out in the streets and if the cop sees them, they're going to get them. And, you know, there's the families won't ask for help because they're afraid somebody's going to report them. So how do we include that population into these data so we make sure we reach every single population that's has, you know, dealing with their loved ones who have disabilities and, you know, maybe deaf and stuff like that? Because I know there's a lot of families who do have people, but they won't be included because they're afraid to come out because, you know, they'll get deported.
Thank you, Lori, for your comment. If Sandra, if you have a response, I would ask for it to be at the end towards public comment so that we, if it's just for timeliness sake. Next, we have Jim Carter. Jim, you may unmute yourself.
Thank you. And thank you, Laurie, and thank you, Sandra, for your presentation. I find it very helpful. You mentioned early on that the police department just receives training in the Recruit Academy. I know Chief Mata's on the call right now. I'd like to find out if there's ongoing training throughout the career of the police officer, or is it just during that probationary time or Recruit Academy time that they receive the initial training?
Thanks, Jim. This is Sandra. Just to clarify, the training is offered during CIT, the Crisis Intervention Training, and it's available, my understanding, and welcome Chief Mata's comments, but from my understanding, it's available to all the officers. What our trainers told me is that it is mostly the new recruits, and occasionally they'll get a few veterans hanging out in the back.
Okay, so
it's not actively participating.
Okay, so I guess my question is, it's not an annual refresher training or a training that would take place on a regular basis.
Chief Mata, if you would like to make a comment, you may unmute yourself.
Sure. So there are some officers like our mobile crisis assessment team that do receive additional training than the CIT that was just mentioned. And when we do get our annual training, some of those topics may include mental health or a CIT refresher, not as in-depth as our CIT Academy. And that, again, that's based on the mandated training the state wants us to provide our officers.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. And my understanding is that neither of those trainings focus on disabilities.
Thank you for your comments, Chief Martin and Jim Carter. And we have one last public comment, one last comment from Tamara, and then we'll be moving on to the next agenda item. Tamara, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. You might see two of me. I just got on my phone because my computer's acting weird. So I wanted to share an option. So I heard in Sandra's part of the presentation, different breakdowns of percentages of participants. And I did wonder, and maybe I didn't see it, what were the racial and ethnic demographics, if that was asked. And then going to the second presentation, you know, an emphasis on hearing from and centering persons of color who are disabled. And I think hearing from people in that listening session and making sure that we have that data to say, like, this is what this community is asking for, and continuing that conversation needs to happen. In addition to that, as we are the Reimagining Public Safety Committee, I would like us to think about moving away from, as was mentioned in the second presentation, just alternatives to policing, but also how can we have more civilianized provided services, civilianized jobs. that are offering these services and resources to the community, specifically to people who are disabled and people of color who are disabled. And as Lori said, those who are undocumented. So I think we just need to think more in terms of how can we create a support system that is led by the community, that also allows for people who are going into careers that have gone through the training as like social worker type people, 4 to 6 years versus something that's only a few hours once a year, maybe. I don't think that us relying on police officers and police officers having this responsibility is going to be sufficient.
Thank you, Tamara. We have one last comment from committee member Darcy Green, and then we'll be moving on to the next agenda item.
Hi, thank you. I'll keep it very short. Thank you for the presentation. I'm also wondering if we might be able to think about the same way we encourage our city institutions and systems to look through everything with a racial justice lens. Are we being very intentional about looking through all the policies that we're recommending and the work that's being done through an intentional called out disability justice lens? And is there a framework we should also be adopting in all of this work? Like, meaning everything that comes out of this committee should probably also have a disability justice lens, and we can continue working with the presenters on what that framework would look like. I'm also really interested in the comment that was made around other carceral state, the way that the carceral state shows up in other systems like social work and other types of health-based institutions. I know that I've brought that up in the past with respect to DV and the impact of social systems that also serve as like replacement carceral options. I'm really interested in exploring this topic more around policing, but also other ways that government functions in a carceral way for vulnerable communities. So I don't have a specific policy recommendation, but I think along those two strands, I'd be really interested in looking at a disability justice framework and lens that we can apply to all of this work. And then also exploring more the other ways that our community is policed using city funds.
Thank you, Darcy. And the framework is definitely something for us as a community to think about. Just for the consideration of time, I will ask that any public comments please hold until towards the end of the meeting when we have time allotted for public comments, because we still have a few agenda items that still need to be considered. So my apologies, Adrienne. So moving next on our agenda are subcommittee reports and action items. So first, we will be hearing from the from IHOMA about the Police Accountability and Reform Subcommittee. So IHOMA, you may unmute yourself.
Hello, and I'm gonna rely on Chris to direct the slides for me. So I am a part of the Police Accountability and Reform Subcommittee, and the main focus or the theme that I want to share is our discussion of a recommendation to the Charter Review Commission. And Chris has put it in the chat for everyone. If I can see the next slide, please.
Yeah, actually, sorry, Holman, I didn't get to add that to the slide deck, but I can share the screen for the letter of recommendation. I apologize for that.
Okay, yes. So my proposal is that the committee vote, or I like to make a motion for the committee to vote on sending this letter to the Charter Review Commission. And let me read aloud the contents of the letter for you. It's a memorandum whose purpose is to convey to the council and committee our support for community oversight committee to be added to the city's charter through the work of the Charter Review Commission. The executive summary: for too long, the San Jose Police Department has been allowed to police itself without the benefit of accountability from the community. At this point, much of the community believes police are not accountable to anyone, which is destroying trust between the community and the public safety apparatus. We believe that a committee such as the one that is being proposed should not only advise, but have the authority to investigate individual incidents of misconduct, have the power to issue disciplinary measures, and speak meaningfully to the policies and procedures that exist within the current policing structures. We support the Charter Commission recommending a police oversight committee whose main function should include, but not be limited to, 1, patterns of practice, 2, use of force, 3, training, 4, policies and practices, 5, promotions, demotions, hiring and firing, 6, investigation function, subpoena power and ability to review unredacted records. In order to ensure this committee garners the public trust, the community should have direct input on who serves on such a committee, giving special consideration to communities most impacted by police violence. This will avoid government officials, elected and staff from injecting politics contrary to the public's interest. So this is from the subcommittee, a letter draft that we are recommending, or I'm making a motion for this body to send or approve to be sent to the Charter Review Commission. It is a letter of support.
I second that motion.
Before we move forward, are there any clarifying questions for Ihoma about the letter? We will have a portion of time for debate over it, but any clarifications about the question, it's about the letter itself from anybody? Okay, so we have a second.
I do. Wait,
Okay.
Tarab, I do. So on the part where it says where the police, the process where we get to do it, there's also what should be the pattern. Let me see, patterns of force training, policies and practice promotion. So the powers to demote and hire and fire, right? So if a chief of police wants to fire one of their officers, right? They will fire them, but there's an arbitration process. So that needs to be on there. We need to be able to have that arbitration process transparent and visible to the public.
Lori, my apologies. I just want to say that we have time for debate on adding things to the letter later, but right now it was just questions for Ihoma about what the letter itself. So if you have a suggestion for something to be added to the letter, we could discuss that in the discussion portion. My apologies. I should have clarified that. But we have a second, and so now we are open for discussion, and so now there's time for discussion. If some people would like to add something to this, you can speak now about that. You may unmute your mic, Brian.
I believe his name is Blair.
Oh, Blair, my apologies.
Blair,
Blair, you may
that's
unmute your mic.
I would possibly rather be named Brian. Hi, Blair here. Thank you. The letter's finalized. I don't want to, and I'm very new to how to ask questions of the process. I work on surveillance and technology ordinance ideas, and the ideas of a surveillance technology oversight committee, I think, could be a very important addition to the work you guys are doing. Is there any way to put that into your police oversight measures here, or is that going to be for another committee at another time kind of thing? I mean, I know you guys have probably talked about it with others. I know, what's her name? Samina Usman, she's around a lot, and I know you've talked to her. And yeah, just, I don't know, just a few small words so I can get an idea, a sense of where the surveillance and technology or ideas can fit into this kind of things we're working on at this time.
Is it okay if I take that? Thank you, Blair. That sounds, from what you're saying, to be maybe something that is located under investigation function. And this isn't structuring how this oversight will work or be. This is a recommendation to the Charter Review Commission that they include these functions and they don't limit them. So this is at least a minimum list, but certainly we hope they include more than that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of things that it's interesting that can be of help. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Do any other committee members have anything to say about the letter, whether they would like to send it or to not send it, this is the time for discussion and open discussion about this.
It sounded like Lori was wanting to make a motion to add, it sounded to number 6 under the investigation function, the ability to, I'm not sure how to phrase it, to
The
review
ability
arbitration.
Yeah, the ability to know who is on the arbitration committee, so we know how these cops are getting their jobs back after, like, the chief of police fires them. And so these arbitration committees are very important as to how we're going to weed out the bad cops. If the chief of police is firing guys, and then the arbitration committee is a bunch of people, we don't know who they are and why they keep on putting these bad cops back on our streets. We need to know who they are and why this arbitration committee is so secret.
Ihoma, would you consider a friendly amendment?
Yes, I would like to amend 6 to include review of arbitration, of police arbitration.
Okay, and since we have a motion to amend, we are now in discussion. Oh, before I move ahead, is there a second on the amendment?
Hold on, Tarab. Pancho was the one who originally seconded it. So if he agrees to that, we can just, okay, so he does. So we continue on as though that were there from the start.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So we are now in discussion for adding the amendment. Is there any objection? Okay, so is there any other comment about adding the portion about reviewing police arbitration? Okay, and Pancho, was your hand up about this amendment?
Both in terms of the overall request, the letter, and in general. I wanted to emphasize that I really appreciate the work of the committee on this to help develop this. This obviously we're trying to engage in a conversation and with an ongoing conversation with the Charter Review Commission to create an ongoing structure that will be able to take on a number of things. So to kind of Blair's point that he was bringing up in terms of policies and practices, things around accountability, and also the investigative function of such a civilian oversight board. It seems to be reflective of what you've seen in a wide variety of different types of tasks that civilian review commissions have kind of taken on. And I think leaving the language like as has been amended, but also making sure that we don't get too specific about like all the things that they need to do or the steps they need to be able to take, but saying that they need to have that investigative and review of investigations completed and involved in this, I think gives us the right level for us to be able to kind of talk about it. So I think, asking for those things to be made public is really the kind of the point or the spirit of what I think I was hearing from, from Lori. But I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lori, but I think like it's all aspects of it. It's the arbitration, but it's like when something's happened, how does discipline happen and those types of things. So if there's a way of being able to put that language, like massaging the language, I don't know if that could go back to the committee or whatever. We may be able to wordsmith it here, but I think the spirit of what I'm seeing in terms of the recommendation is that there's an investigation function, there's a public oversight and daylighting of that function would be really, really beneficial. And I think that's where like that involvement. And I think that fits in with what we've seen in the public commission hearings that have happened by the Charter Review Commission, looking at that.
I'm sorry to cut you off because we're just in discussion only for the police arbitration amendment. And so I would just like to move on from that into the broader ones. Are there any specific comments about just adding the wording review police arbitration? If there aren't, we will now move.
It's a wrap.
Hi.
We don't actually need to officially vote on this because Ihoma moved it and Pancho agreed to it. So we don't need to vote to add it.
Okay. I'm still learning this a little bit more.
That's okay. You're doing great.
Hi. Blair Beekman here really quickly about the police arbitration things. Thank you for wanting to cover that. I'm assuming that's pension issues also, and that can be a really important one too in how to address the future of policing. And yeah, the recent arbitration over the past year, we're ending up having this current inflation process, I feel. So good luck with the future of arbitration issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. So we are now considering whether or not to send this letter on behalf of the committee, as it's been amended to add the section about reviewing police arbitration. We're now still in discussion about this. Are there any comments from other committee members who haven't spoken yet, or members of the public who would like to say something as well? This would be the time. If not, then we will call this item to question. So we have the motion, and Pancho has seconded it. We have amended the motion to as a friendly amendment from Lori to add the section about police arbitration. So now, first we will go with the ayes. So if you are in favor of sending this letter on behalf of the Reimagining Public Safety Community Advisory Committee, as it's been amended, please use the raise hand function now. This is only if you're in favor. And I believe, Chris, will you be writing it down? Or should
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, I can try to follow this. And also, this only applies if you are officially nominated to the committee from a nominating organization.
Okay, so everybody who is in favor has this is your last opportunity to raise your hand for voting members of the committee. Final call. These are all the ayes. I ask please everybody who used the raise hand function to please lower your hand. We will now take nays. All those who are not in favor of this committee sending this letter, please use the raise hand function now. Again, those of the voting committee members who are not in favor of sending this letter, please use the raise hand function. I see that no hands are raised. Lastly, those committee members who are choosing to abstain from voting, please raise your hand. And last call for those committee members who have not voted A or nay and choose to abstain from voting, please raise your hand. We will now tally the votes. Chris?
Yes, I believe we have 16 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
And we have 27 voting members on the committee, and we need a simple majority to pass. Some quick math, that is enough to pass. So the motion passes. The Reimagining Public Safety Community Advisory Committee has voted in favor of releasing the letter penned as shown by Yuma and as amended to add the portion for police arbitration, as recommended by Committee Member Lori Valdez. Thank you, everybody who chose to discuss on this motion. I appreciate your participation in this public discourse. We will now be moving on with the committee agenda, and we'll be taking subcommittee reports from the Alternative Safety. We will receive the report from the Alternatives to Public Safety Response Committee. So I believe Tamara will be speaking on behalf of the subcommittee. Tamara, you may unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. So I'm one of the members of the Alternatives to Policing Committee, and we have our meetings on the off weeks of this meeting, and we basically were reviewing or going over last time the presentation regarding the mobile crisis response team. So going over that, just getting some clarifying questions answered. We talked a little bit about what were some alternatives in terms of how we can get more use in communities, specifically communities of color, more use of a crisis team like this and other alternatives to policing. So one model that we looked at and are deciding to do a little bit more research on, specifically some models that come out of Berkeley and Oakland here in the Bay Area, as well as other places like Tucson, is this tiered response approach to calls. So having calls being interjected, and either it's going to be the person on the other line allows you to go to this dispatch of mental health crisis, and then answering a couple questions to see what the intake is, or maybe there's a tier, 1 to 2 tiers of immediate danger or immediate life-threatening, and it's requiring more intensive response or services, ambulance or other things to help. So we talked about that, thinking about how can we have community support around this, what are the ways that we would want to bring discussion around this, and specifically the programs that we're going to be doing some research in from Oakland and Berkeley. So one area specifically that we're hoping to bring to the rest of you all in this committee, the Reimagining Public Safety Committee, is just thinking about how we can best support the community in supporting this type of intervention, but also a tiered model in policy recommendation, and what that would look like as far as employment and not necessarily the same thing as the mobile crisis response team itself, but the back end of it, who's receiving the calls and how things are being transferred. So just doing a little bit more research, having discussion around that, and seeing what people think. Also, we're hoping to have more discussion with everyone on what you all recommend as alternatives to policing, in terms of, as I mentioned before, thinking about how we can move away from putting responsibilities on police officers and more responsibilities on civilianized type jobs that require unarmed people, also people who have gone through a certain amount of schooling and training, and making sure that we're looking into specific programs, specifically here in the Bay Area, that have similar data in terms of people who've been either killed or brutalized by the police, and making sure that we're thinking of what can best serve our community.
Thank you, Tamara. Next, we will hear back from the Promotion and Prevention Subcommittee. Is there a spokesperson for the subcommittee?
Hi, our committee met and right now we're in the research phase. We'll have more of a report in November.
Thank you. Time. This is pretty well timed. It is now 7:50, so we have 10 minutes where we are open for public comment. So this is a space for any members of the public who would like to share their stories or with the committee. And so I will first take that if there are any comments from members of the public. First, we have Blair and then Molly. Blair, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Blair here. Thanks for the meeting. Nice to be learning more of what you're doing. And it's a big letter you're sending, so good luck with it. And yeah, I hope Samina Usman, she's from CARE, and she's a part of either the subcommittee or the steering committee process. You know, I hear her out about ideas about the future of how surveillance and technology data collection can be, for us to have oversight with that is an incredibly important, responsible tool for ourselves, for our future community and our lives. It really takes it out of the possession of government, the future of technology and the national security state. It puts it into our hands. That's an incredible concept to consider. Good luck with those efforts. I wanted to quickly mention the subcommittee process. It was a bit difficult with the city charter stuff and to have an open, accessible subcommittee process. They're trying to do it better now. I'm sure you guys have made some good steps towards that direction. I think the goal should be for the subcommittees to be open to the public and fully accessible, but that may not happen. And if it doesn't, we should be able to ask for recordings of the subcommittees that should be available to the public soon after, and or at least the minutes or the agenda items. You guys may prefer the privacy route, but I prefer the public route and making it a fully accessible process for all of us to contribute to and add to, and as we can. And so that's where I'm coming from with the issue, and I'm talking about this over with Tony and trying to get her to. I know she's working on it too, and hopefully, working. There's 2 other commissions to really be considering this 2022 that also may have subcommittees that, this work now we do can help them later. So I thought I'd mention that, and that's what I'm doing with my days. And I sit at public comment time, just kind of Mr. Farmer Blair. So, good luck how you work on this stuff, and thanks a lot.
Thank you for your comment, Blair. And I see we have 3 more hands up, and so for the consideration of time, I will ask that public comments be restricted to 2 minutes. Molly, you may unmute yourself.
Thank you. This is Molly Macleod. And I'm going to share 2 more resources that I would appreciate adding to the minutes and resource folder. One of them is Project Let's. It's a national organization. They've got trainings coming up on anti-carceral approaches to suicide. In other words, not involving policing. So it fits right within the reimagining approach. And then the other one, when we talk about accessibility, and I'm wearing a shirt that's related to the resource I'm putting in, Access is Love. It's a practice. It's a collective practice that we do over and over and get better at it over time. And the intention is to be mindful so that everybody can participate. And if there's conflicting access needs, that we still try to find ways to let everybody participate and be heard. Because when we come to any meeting, we always need to ask who's missing. Thanks again for your consideration.
Thank you, Molly, for your comment. We now have Adrienne. You may unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Adrienne. The comment I wanted to make before, and I want to thank everybody for the great work that's being done, and I really appreciate it. I was with Karina's family. And during those times when we had the rallies, and I sang at the memorial service for her dad, when Rudy Cardenas was shot in the back by a DEA agent. And I remember when Vic Caltran was shot in her kitchen. And I, even as much as 2 weeks ago, as long as that was ago, I can relate to having PTSD still over everything that happened, and a person was shot in the backyard next to our church. There was just a lot going on at that time. And I remember seeing some dark-skinned kids. I don't know if they were brown or black or Indian, what they were, but they had dark complexions and they were running down the middle of the street. And all I could think of was crying out to them and saying, don't run, don't run. Because I didn't want them to be shot. There's just, we don't know the impact that these things have on us as we live through them and we notice it. Fortunately, I have a good support system. I have ways of, you know, I'm a minister, I talk to God all the time. So I've got a great support system. But I just, when I heard her speak on that issue, I thought, yeah, it just recently came up for me too. So these things are very important and they have to be dealt with if we're to have a healthy society. The other thing was, not everybody's going to want to do what it is that we need to have done. And so the other thing, unfortunately, is docking people's pay. If they don't do something correctly, rest assured, if their pay is docked, they'll change. So,
Adrian, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there.
Sure, I'm done.
Mark.
That was the end of it. Thank you very much.
But thank you very much for your comment. And before Maria goes, I would just like to ask everyone who is going to be listening into the comment in English to please click the interpretation button in the bottom right corner of your screen and choose the English interpretation option, please. I'm going to give a moment. Again, it's to click on the bottom right corner of your screen and choose the English interpretation option. Maria, you may now unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Sí, muy buenas tardes. Gracias por la oportunidad de poder estar en esta reunión. Y me da gusto ver en todas nuestras culturas que nos están tomando en cuenta sin importar la raza, el color, el idioma, porque nuestra voz como comunidad cuenta. Y sé que la policía está haciendo muy buen trabajo porque sé que necesitan entrenamiento. Pero somos la voz, los ojos, los oídos de nuestra policía, porque ellos también arriesgan su vida. Y no toda la culpa es de los oficiales. Hay buenos, hay muchos que necesitan entrenamiento, pero nuestra policía, estoy muy agradecida en nombre de mi comunidad y sé que vamos a formar un grupo de igualdad, equidad y respeto hacia una sola comunidad.
Thank you, Mira, for your comment. Chris, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I just wanted to make available. I know there's been a lot of questions around what exactly the Brown Act is, which is governing this meeting along with all official city meetings. And so I'm putting into the chat a training on YouTube that you all may view for your information. I'll also be sending it out in our email, our next email communication for the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you, Chris. And I actually had one thing to share with the committee as well. If we have time, I said we have a minute. Sorry, I just have to close the screen so I can share this resource with you. So I was able to attend very briefly the Taking the Call, a national conference that was held by the Department of Justice and other organizations. And I won't go into detail, but they talked a lot about what we are talking about when it comes to building alternative systems and a better public safety system. So I just want to say that I'm going to be dropping the link for their resources. So they have shared all the resources that were shared during this 2-day webinar. And so if there's something that interests you in these subcategories, I would encourage you to go and take a look at them. They've shared a lot of great issue briefs and short written documents that are a great overview into topics. We are at 8 o'clock. Thank you everybody for being here today and for sharing your experiences and for participating in this public process. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have Poncho has a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Second, all those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. This is just my favorite part of all meetings. So please raise your hand if you are in favor of adjourning. Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned.